Jeeps. Jeeps. Why are these cars so dang expensive to do paint protection film on? It's a square. How hard could it be, right? Well, today I'm going to take you behind the scenes and show you what kind of work goes into paint protection film on a Jeep and why these dang cars are so hard to wrap. Our client today is bringing us a Jeep Gladiator, which is a very unique looking Jeep, right? I had a coworker once when I used to sell Porsches back in Minneapolis, and he literally called it the Apache, like a helicopter. So he's bringing it brand new to us for our full front end paint protection film, as well as the whole thing ceramic coated, so that this vehicle can not only stay looking really good, but stay clean and protected. So I'm gonna walk you through front to back the nuances of a job like this and why these types of jobs cost a little bit more money than your average car. Now we're gonna move on to probably one of the most tedious parts outside of the install, and that's the disassembly. So these Jeeps, I don't know why Stellantis does this, but these Jeeps are assembled a certain way where they only come off like fenders and vents. It comes off in a very particular way. So I'm gonna walk you through it. So let's start with the hood, right? So you got the vent, you got two little handle looking trim behind it, and you've got a bunch of other miscellaneous trim that has to come out if you want this thing on smooth, and it's a pain in the butt, right? So in order to do disassembly, so that we can tuck all of that film, man, there's a lot. Like I've had cars with clips and whatnot with liners, but this is a lot of liners. The removal is also a pain in the butt. All of those pieces are held in not only by clips, but also by a lot of tension. So you kind of have to pry at a clip and pull at the same time gently and literally pry the vents off. It is a little nerve-wracking and tedious, but this is what it takes to get a great install on a Jeep. When we're doing our washes, we're going to be using a 3-bucket method. That's 2 buckets for paint, 1 for wheels. This is the safest way to wash your vehicle without scratching the paint. The wheels on a car are usually the dirtiest area of any car, which is why the wheels get their own bucket. The tools that are found in the wheel bucket are never used on the paint. As we wash the vehicle, we're inspecting the paint, making sure that we're not seeing any kind of weird things. But what's really important is that we have to be able to remove the contaminants that aren't immediately visible by the naked eye. So on top of a chemical decontamination, we're going to be doing a physical decontamination as well. So that doesn't necessarily mean just a wash, but that also means a clay bar. So the clay bar is designed to pull embedded contaminants that are stuck in the paint that don't come out with a wash, right? And so these type of contaminants, they really start to embed themselves into the paint. The clay bar literally works by going over the paint and pulling the contaminant out, leaving us with a clean finish. So now that the car has been cleaned, washed, and clay barred and decontaminated fully, we're gonna pull it inside and continue our prep. We're going to do a minor 1-step paint correction of the vehicle. Now, this car is brand new. Does it even need a paint correction? And the answer is, yeah, depends on you, right? New vehicles, I find sometimes they could use it, sometimes you can really get away with it. Our client today is opting to just pay us to polish it out for peace of mind. He wants to make sure there's absolutely no swirl marks, no scratches, no water spots. He wants that finish perfect prior to us sealing it in.
Okay, so we are plotting out this Gladiator, and what I'm doing here is we're using a software called Core to not only precisely cut the film to the specifics of the vehicle, but we're actually going to extend a lot of the edges. You can see the standard kit has it end right here and also has the Jeep emblem cut out. What we're going to do to get the cleanest install is we remove that cutout for that Jeep emblem and extend these edges into the fender flares, giving you a really bespoke finish. So this custom cut is going to allow us to achieve that and also make the install a lot easier.
So let's start with the hood. This particular piece is a little tricky, but it's not too bad. If you look at the shape of this hood, it's actually a little bit curved, like it's flat and then it's curved at the edges. So the way we're gonna install this paint protection film is we lay it out and we do what's called a 4-corner stretch to get the stress of the film flat against the surface. We call that glass, right? Just try to get it glass with the surface. So the tricky thing though is once it is around the majority of the panels, if you look at the back part where the hood latches onto the body, you can actually see there's like a little handle. So, and there's a deep recess that reaches into it. So how do you get a flat piece of film to go deep into a recess and lock? And that's the tricky part. So when we're doing paint protection film on the back part where the latch meets the hood, we have to feed in the paint protection film and lock it as we go. And this is a very technical installation because it requires us to not only stretch the film really good initially so that it's even in its tension across that entire area, but as we feed it in and lock, we have to hold it in place and make sure that it stays. And then we have to trim by hand with a blade against the paint so that's nice and flush. This is not only very technical, but very skill intensive, right? Because if we cut a little too deep, we'll slice into the paint. That's not good, right? But if we don't cut enough, the film doesn't tear or score enough where we can tear it safely. So it requires a lot of training with a knife and a very delicate hand to make sure that we have just the right amount of pressure so we get that tuck and that trim clean on that back end. With the body of the hood finally laid, we're gonna go ahead and trim the perimeter of this paint protection film on the hood. So you can see the way that we're trimming, we actually don't trim flush. That would be a little silly to me. We trim about a centimeter, maybe a little less, around the edge of the hood. This allows us to tuck the film underneath. And like I mentioned earlier, tuck film is more durable and it looks really good. But in order to do so, you have to custom trim it by hand. So when we're laying paint protection film, despite us going and doing a very thorough prep job, we're still gonna prep the vehicle one more time immediately before we lay. And this is really important because as the car sits in my shop, there could be 1 or 2 specks of dirt or dust that land on the panel. And so we have to make sure that the panel is absolutely pristine, which is why we clean it immediately before we lay film. As we lay the film, this is really important. We're gonna squeegee in little sections here, right? The solution that you're seeing, the liquid, is actually a soapy water solution that allows us to manipulate the paint protection film without the adhesives sticking to the paint. We now move on to the fenders, and I think this is probably the worst part. Take out the fenders. They have rivets. Why, Stellantis, rivets, right? What happens if they're in a fender bender? You gotta bust all the rivets out and re-rivet gun them back, like literally install new rivets. We literally had to go buy a rivet gun and OEM rivets from Stellantis just to put these fenders back on, to take them off, all right? You got a couple bolts holding in the fender liner and whatnot, but when it comes time to remove the fender itself, you got to physically drill the rivets out, slowly pry trim just like on the top, and then it'll finally come out with a little bit of finessing. But this part is probably the worst because you have to literally go in and re-rivet it once we're done. Now you might be wondering, well, Jesse, why did you have to take out the fenders? Why can't you just do paint protection film on it attached to the car already? And the answer is coverage, right? So with these fenders in the way, if you look behind some of this B-roll, you're not able to get that paint protection film close with the body of where like the fender meets the body, right? You're just not able to get that film easily in one piece. But that's only one of the problems. The major problem is actually getting paint protection film over the fender itself. Now, if you look at the shape of it, it's not only curved on the top of it, but it goes all the way down in arches. And so with paint protection film, you cannot get it to lay smooth on that piece without taking it off and stretching the film a certain way. The stress of the film, if stretched incorrectly, will finger up and lift over time, right? And so because tolerance of this fender next to the body is so tight, we cannot stretch film over that piece in one cohesive piece, right? We'd have to almost piece it in or do a partial for it to stick in any meaningful way. So our client wants the full thing protected and he wants it to look really good. This is the only way to do it. Now this disassembly, reassembly, it adds probably around 3 to 5.5, 6 hours of labor depending on what we run into. So now that we've done this a few times, okay, I can probably do this a little quicker, but oh my goodness, on this vehicle, we had to dig through manuals, we had to go and find out how to disassemble this. And so our client wants the best, and unfortunately there's no shortcuts, but that's why Jeep paint protection film can be a little pricey. Finally, we move on to that front bumper, and thankfully this is the easiest part of the install. Oh, finally, something not so bad, right? If you look at the shape of the Jeep front end, I mean, there's no weird stretches, it's all alignment. Now, alignment is also really important as well when you're doing PPF, right? You gotta make sure that paint protection film, the way that it's cut out, lines up perfectly with the edges and the vent cutouts and headlight cutouts. You have to make sure it's all really neat and perfect prior to you locking it in. And the entire time you're doing it, you gotta make sure that you're squeegeeing evenly so that you're not leaving any water, but also so that you're not leaving any dirt or dust underneath the film. So we're constantly checking the area that we squeegee just to make sure there's no contaminants and there's no leftover water. But in doing so, we're able to get a clean alignment with a clean installation. So let's talk about windshield protection film. This is exactly like what it sounds like, but it's very different from paint protection film. So PPF, if you put it on glass, you're gonna have a little bit of a wavy texture. It's gonna drive you nuts. Even though it's really good at physically protecting stuff, if you have to look through it all the time, you may have a little bit of a texture that just, it's terrible. So windshield protection film is exactly like what it sounds like. It's protection film for glass. So when you apply windshield protection film, you have to custom install it. Unfortunately, they don't really make kits for this material. So we apply it bulk and we trim the perimeter by hand once it's been laid correctly. This stuff here is not only very clear, but it also can protect from big rock chips from splitting glass, but also the small pitting that happens over time from things like sand. And so especially for very flat facing glass like what's on this Jeep, this is a product that makes a whole bunch of sense, especially since the vehicle is brand new. It is time to finally reassemble. So just like in the beginning, we just work in reverse. So all of the vent pieces go back in, clips go back in, the fender liners go back in, and then even for the fenders, right? The fenders, we have to put the clips back in, but we literally had to go get a rivet gun, like I mentioned earlier, and re-rivet all of the rivets that hold in that front fender flare. With brand new fresh rivets, this Jeep is now fully reassembled, and the end result is fantastic. Alrighty guys, so NextZen GSO2. This is NextZen's flagship coating. You can see installing it is a total pain in the ass. It's so damn thick, right? But NextZen GSO2 is so concentrated with graphene in a way that is actually relevant, right? A lot of these graphene coatings on the market, they kind of have these graphene platelets sprinkled in and suspended in the fluid, but NextZen, the way that they use graphene is that it's suspended in the liquid and it's actually like a part of the liquid, right? And so in doing so, the graphene is able to build an even layer, and that's why it's so damn thick. With GSO2, the major claim to fame is that graphene builds a layer of UV protection that actually can block out up to 20% of the UV damage that's coming into the paint. In doing so, it helps preserve the vehicle from oxidation. So these panels here are actually on the roof, and the entire Jeep is gonna get coated in GSO2, right? So our client wanted the best ceramic coating. He wanted the one that not only is UV resistant, but it's actually more durable too. GSO2, on top of being UV resistant, actually has some sciencey stuff that makes it different, right? So NextZen rates GSO2 at a whopping 9 years of durability. How the hell are they getting 9 years durability out of a coating? And the answer is the chemistry. So a lot of ceramic coatings, the way that they work is they kind of stack on top of each other like that, including NextZen's Elite ceramic coating. So that type of coating technology, it kind of sits on top. It does like get into the pores a little bit, but it sits like this. If this is the paint, this is NextZen, it kind of sits like that. GSO2 is actually quite different. So GSO2's bonding technology uses these little chemical hooks, for lack of better words. And if you can imagine it, it's almost like Velcro, right? Like chemical Velcro that's digging into the paint and really adhering itself to the surface of the paint, but also deeper into the pores. In doing so, it hooks stronger and it's able to resist wear and tear far better than a lot of ceramic coatings on the market, which is how NextZen can give you a 9-year warranty on this particular coating. GSO2 is indeed the best. It is hella UV resistant and it's super chemical resistant as well due to its bonding technology. And then the best part is that it's a very flexible coating, so it can kind of expand and contrast as the panel heats up and cools down, which means more consistent results over a very long period of time. With the paint protection film on the full front end, our client can rest easy knowing that his Gladiators can be protected from rock chips, scratches, swirl marks, things of that nature. But the rest of the vehicle got protected in that next gen GSO2 as well. Now, he wanted the best ceramic coating too, and that's what this is. With the whole vehicle prepared, prepped, and coated and sealed with a PPF and the ceramic coating, this Gladiator is good to go. This Jeep did require a lot more scrutiny, it required a lot more finesse and knowledge, but that's why these Jeep PPF jobs can be pretty expensive, right? It just takes more time, but that's what you're paying for. So if you want a shop that can treat your Jeep right, you want someone who does it really well and who's willing to take the extra step, go the extra mile, that's us here at Humble Crew Auto Spa. So if you've got a Jeep, bring it to us. I'll talk to you soon. It's Jesse at Humble Crew Auto Spa, signing out.